Now, you're going to notice something. A lot of America's very important people came from Virginia. George Washington, leader of our military, from Virginia. Richard Henry Lee, the guy that proposes the Declaration of Independence, from Virginia. Thomas Jefferson, the #1 author of the Declaration of Independence, from Virginia. There is a reason for that. Virginia was the most populated of all of the colonies at the time. They carry a lot of weight they carry a lot of weight with their decisions. Also, Virginia was part of the South, but they're right next to the North. So they are the ones that can link the radical North, who wants independence, and the reserved South, that a lot of the South wanted to stay loyal to Britain. If any other state had proposed it, the South would have ignored it. Thomas Jefferson did most of the writing, I already said that. But in order for the Declaration of Independence to pass, it had to be more than a majority of the colonies agreed to it. It had to be unanimous. Unanimous means that no one goes against it. Doesn't mean everybody votes for it. It means nobody goes against it. And the reason for that is so that no colony can be forced to leave Britain unless they really wanted to. The Declaration of Independence is made up of 4 parts. So the 4 parts. First part is the introduction. Introduction. This is all it says, and I underlined the parts that basically tell you the meaning. When it becomes necessary to dissolve the political bands, they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. The easiest way to think of the Declaration of Independence is by thinking of it as a breakup letter. So the first part of the breakup letter basically says, when you're going to break up with somebody, you need to tell them why. That's basically what this is saying here. When you're going to break up with somebody, you need to tell them why. The second part of the Declaration of Independence is a list of rights. So this is a list of things that the colonists believed that they should have. It includes a list of John Locke's rights: life, liberty, and we put pursuit of happiness instead of property because it sounded better. But basically, if you're talking about a breakup letter again, this is saying, this is how you should have treated me. You should have done this. You should have done that. These are all things that should have happened. And my smart board froze again. It's not a smart board, it's a dumb board. So these are all things. This is how Britain should have treated us. So you're breaking up with somebody? This is what you should have done. This is how I would have loved you. All right, the third portion, which is by far the longest because it's what America is the best at. We are the best at complaining. So the third part is a list of complaints against King George III. It's saying all sorts of things that he has done to us. Taxation without representation, no self-government, no territorial expansion, because remember he gave the land to the natives. The military in the colonies during times of peace, trading rights stripped, taxes, no separation of executive, legislative, and judicial branches. We're saying that he has done all these things. So once again, if we're talking about a breakup letter, it's saying, you did this to me, and this to me, and this to me, and this to me. And it's just a list that goes on and on forever. Like I said, this is by far the longest part. All of these are complaints against the king. And it's still going. And there we finally get to the end. The last part is we declare independence. So we are saying that in Congress assembled, let's see, where is it at? That these united colonies are and of right ought to be free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved. Basically, back in terms of the breakup letter, this is where you say, and we are through. We are done. We got nothing else to do with you. And there is one little part that comes afterwards. It is the list of signatures. Because everybody had to sign it. If they didn't sign it, they weren't allowed to be in Congress anymore. And there was one person that refused to sign it. That was John Dickinson. So he left, but he did go and serve in our country's military, which is, extremely honorable. The vote had to be unanimous, though. And there was a question on whether it would happen. The first vote happens on July 1st, 1776. South Carolina and Pennsylvania both vote against it. New York abstained. Abstain means to not vote, or to not participate. Abstain means to not participate in. And then on July 2nd, Edward Rutledge of South Carolina asks for a new vote. But it's odd that he asked for a new vote because there is something missing now that was in the original Declaration of Independence. Originally, the Declaration of Independence talked poorly about slavery. Well, on July 2nd, that portion of the Declaration of Independence is gone. No longer do they call slavery a sin against God and man. That part is taken out. So South Carolina now agrees to it. And Pennsylvania, since they would have been the only state to vote against independence, maybe that's what causes them to change their mind. As a result, the vote is 12-0 and 1 abstention. You had one colony not vote. But since they didn't vote against it, it is still unanimous. Declaration of Independence was announced on July 4th, 1776. Had to wait 2 days, got to get copies made. Because remember, the Declaration of Independence isn't to tell Britain that we're done with them. That whole breakup letter thing that I was telling you guys about, imagine it has a post button on the end of it. It's not to tell the person you're breaking up with. It's to tell everybody else in the world that we're breaking up with Britain. We are single. We're looking for new partners. Declaration of Independence didn't just tell them that we're breaking up with Britain. It's asking who wants to join us in a fight against Britain. And Britain had lots of enemies. All right, here are the signers that we had for the Declaration of Independence: Edward Rutledge, Thomas Hayward Jr., Thomas Lynch Jr., and Arthur Middleton. Thomas Lynch Sr. was supposed to sign the Declaration of Independence, but he actually got sick and died during it. There actually is a space left for him to sign it in the Declaration of Independence, but since he died, he couldn't exactly end up signing it. So make sure you guys have all of your answers. Shoot me an email if you have any questions. Make sure you guys are getting your work done, and I'll see you with the next lesson.